Hello guys, welcome back to Bookmas. Welcome to today's video. I am so excited because I have 23 top books that I read this year, my favorite books of 2023, and of course since it's 2023 I chose 23 books. Now honestly it took me a while to find like the last 5. I kind of just like pushed some up that I did enjoy this year, but not my like absolute favorites. So all of my favorites are in here from the year, but like it was hard to choose exactly 23. Like that's kind of a bigger number. I didn't love some of these, but they were better than others, and that is why I've included them. But these are all of my favorite reads of the year, and then I actually have a few that I didn't like this year. I wanted to include some that I didn't enjoy so we could talk about the best and what I didn't like. Not the worst, because they weren't bad books, they just weren't for me. So we're gonna talk about both of them. But before we get started, if you want to buy any of my favorite books of the year, you can do that, and you can earn money while doing it, and that is thanks to Top Cashback. So thank you Top Cashback for sponsoring today's video. I have been using Top Cashback for I think months now, and it has saved me, I'm not kidding, so much money. Anytime I want to buy something on a retailer that I know is on Top Cashback, I immediately do it and I get a % back. It is so easy to use. You just search a retailer on here that you want to get some money back while shopping on to see how much % you can get back on there. So let's say we want to look up Books A Million. You want to buy one of these books I'm talking about, we're gonna look up Books A Million and see how much % we can get through them. So right now Books A Million has 3% cash back, and it's so simple. You just click Books A Million and then you just click get cash back now, and it takes you right to their site, and all you have to do is just search whatever book you want, search what you want to purchase, you put it right into your cart, and once you purchase it you get the % cash back on your Top Cashback profile. One of my favorite parts is when I'm just like regularly shopping and not really thinking about it, there's a browser extension you can add. So if you go to more and click browser extension, you can just install the extension over here, and when you are shopping online it'll just pop up on the website you're on and tell you how much cash back you can get on that site. You can save money at places like Book Outlet, Thrift Books, Walmart, all these like huge retailers, especially big book ones. You can do Books A Million. There's so many on here you can just search up and just see how much % cash back you would get back. The categories for what is available to earn cash back change frequently, so not everything can earn you cash back, but you can always check what's currently available by visiting the Book Outlet merchant page on Top Cashback. If you want to get some Christmas shopping done and you want to shop on here, get some cash back for buying presents for people, I think that's like honestly an amazing idea. I was shopping all last week for Christmas presents and I used Top Cashback and the browser extension to get some money back. As we all know, I know we can all guess, one of the books on my list right here is Magnolia Park. So let's see how much % cash back we can get if we were buying Magnolia Parks from Books A Million. So again, Books A Million has 3% cash back, so just click get cash back now. It takes you right to the site, and let's search Magnolia Parks. So they have all of the Magnolia Parks books on here. They also have Into the Dark, which comes out next year. So if you wanted to pre-order that, you can do that on here, and then you'll get the 3% cash back into your Top Cashback account. There's over 7,000 retailers on Top Cashback, and they offer 100% of commissions back to members, and because of that they feature higher rates than their competitors. And there is no minimum for payouts, so however much money you get into your Top Cashback account, you can take it all out 100%, and you can get a $10 Top Cashback sign-up bonus plus cash back upon spending $25. So all of that information will be in the description if you are interested. The link will be down there. I highly recommend, especially if you're shopping this holiday season. Okay, thank you Top Cashback again for sponsoring today's video. Now into the 23 books that I loved in 2023 and a few that I didn't love. So these books aren't in the order of me reading them throughout the year or my favorite to least favorite of my favorites. It's just completely random. We're just gonna go through the books that I loved this year, and the first 2 are from the same author, and that is by Abby Jimenez. So the first one, I think I read Yours Truly first because this is part of a different interconnected standalone, and I just remember reading this and just feeling like her writing was just a breath of fresh air. You really get like the anxiety rep in here, but with like the male main character, and you kind of see the inner works of his brain. But I love the way that she creates characters and their relationships and the meet cutes, and it's just done so well, and I really fell in love with her writing this year. So I was so excited that she had another interconnected standalone series, and this one is, I don't know if there's like a name for it, but this is called the Happy Ever After playlist, and this one I think is the second, it's the second in this interconnected standalone. It's different from this one. These aren't connected in any way, but I loved this one so much. Again, the meet cute was just so sweet. It really wrapped me in, and you see this main girl character in the book before this, and you see a lot that she goes through, so I was really connected to her and wanted to see her story kind of finish up and get her happily ever after. And it was just so good because this one is about a musician and she's an artist, and just like the 2 of them together, their immediate banter and connection and flirting was so good. She really knows how to write banter and just like so much dialogue. I love it so much, and she was one of like my top authors of this year. I love reading her books. It's just like such a palate cleanser, and also again a breath of fresh air. Okay, the next one is part of a series. I did include series in my top reads, but I chose my favorite one from each of them because I know some series have like, I don't know, 6 books in them, but I couldn't put them in as 6 because that would take up too much space. So I kind of included it as 1, but I did choose my favorite book from each series, so it's kind of like 1. I don't know if that makes sense, but the next one is part of a series, and that is Serpent and Wings of the Night by Chrissa Broadbent. I remember this blowing up on TikTok, and I remember reading it and just like absolutely loving it. It was just so fast paced. The pacing of it was great. The storyline was great. It was a vampire enemies to lovers with like Hunger Games vibes. It was so good. All of the trials were like one after the other. It was like no slow slowing down, and one of the things I loved the most was her writing was very easy to understand. There's a lot going on, but the way that she explained the world and explained the characters and what was going on, it just felt very easy to understand, but it was really fun, fast-paced again, and it was just one of my favorites from the year, obviously. And then following along with the same author, we have Daughter of No World. This is the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I only read the first one. I couldn't get into the other ones, but this one I gave like 4.5 stars. I remember reading this. This was my first book by her, and I ate it up. It was so different than any other fantasy that I read. It just had such a different story and so much to it, and the romance was just so sweet, but it was like a very slow burn getting there, and I loved this. I think the fantasy was so interesting, and I just really enjoyed this one. Then we have none other than the best thing that's happened to me this year, and that is the Magnolia Park series. Now, I did include the whole series in this thing, but they're not as like different numbers, so it counts as like one of my favorites of the year. But my favorite of the whole series, it's hard to choose. It truly is, because I love all of them, but my favorite definitely has to be The Long Way Home, Magnolia Parks. It just truly changed the trajectory of my life. It changed me as a reader. It changed me in every way possible. I fell in love with reading characters, a world like none other. When I was introduced to the series, I had no idea what was going to happen when I read the first Magnolia Parks, that this was going to change my life. And it sounds very dramatic, but it doesn't feel dramatic to me. I'm being very honest right now. It really changed my life. These characters they're flawed, they have their issues, they're dramatic, they have a lot going on, they don't know how to make the right choices, always making mistakes, but something about that I just ate up, and it just felt very real in a very entertaining way. And the writing style of Jessa Hastings is like none other. The lyricalness, the beautiful writing and quotes, and it just really spoke to me. So this one I think is obviously top of the year, but definitely Magnolia Park's Long Way Home. It almost is tied with Daisy Hates too, but it's just, I don't know. It was hard to choose that one. Then we have another series, but my favorite of the series was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I remember reading this for the first time. I was in a pretty big slump, and I remember filming a video trying to get out of a slump, and this is what did it for me. It was just so good because you get like the magical fairy tale-ness of it, and it's not hard to kind of grasp what's going on and read it. It's very simple writing and simple storyline, but also very, again, magical and fairy tale. But the storyline of this one I feel like got heavier on like a romance that I really enjoyed, and I think it ended on such a cliffhanger. Like, it really had me on the edge of my seat. It had all the things that I liked. It had great quotes, it had a great storyline, and it really did it for me. This is one of my favorite reads of the entire year. Like, I loved this book so much. Then we have two books by the same author. The first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I remember this coming out and I was on the fence of Emily Henry at that point. At this point of me right now, I'm not. I love Emily Henry, but this was the first book I read of hers after DNFing Book Lovers, so I was kind of iffy about going into it. I was nervous and seeing everyone's reactions to it, and then I ended up reading it and absolutely eating it up, loving it, and I've never connected to a character like I do Harriet in this book. I was obsessed with it. Her writing style was just so beautiful in this. It almost reminded me of Jessa's writing sometimes with the quotes and everything, and I really connected to it. I loved the story. I loved the friendships. I loved her talking about different relationships in life, and high on my list of favorites of the year. And then the other one was actually a reread by her, and that is Beach Read. I technically read this for the first time in like, I don't know what year it was, but I reread it this year, so I am counting it because I absolutely ate this up this year. This is like a 6, 7, 10 star read for me. This book is like well loved too. Like, it is floppy, it is so annotated, and I just loved it so much. I think connected to it the second time around more because I knew the story and the characters. I can kind of just like feel more for them. Gus was just so perfect. The quotes in here were perfect. I loved the two of them and both of their stories, and this is where I was just like, yeah, I love Emily Henry's writing. Like, I can really connect to it now, and I don't know where the disconnect used to be, but I love her writing. The next is another series, and I tried to pick my favorite from the whole thing, but I have two, and I'm trying really hard to pick. I think I know my favorite, but we'll talk about both of them and the whole series, but that is the Chestnut Springs series. I fell in love with Elsie Silver's writing this year, and her cowboy romances, there's really nothing like it, and her writing, it's just so fun and so good and so entertaining, and just like the whole found family of it. My favorites are Powerless and Reckless. I think Powerless has to be my favorite. This is Jasper's story. He's a hockey player, she's a ballerina. This is my first 5-star of the series. This one I gave, I think, 4.75, so it's like really close. And this is Theo's story, and this one's actually single parent, accidental pregnancy, like all the tropes I don't usually love, but the way Elsie did it, ate it up. She is like the queen of these Chestnut Springs men. Like, I don't know what she puts in these books, but it is so good. I think I'm gonna have to go with Powerless being my favorite, but again, I was introduced to Chestnut Springs this year and my life has been changed. I love this series so much. I'm so sad it's over, but it was just so good while I was reading all of them. Like, they are some of my favorite books of the year. Then following along with cowboy romances, we have Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This one I ate up. I read it in like a day, and it was like another one of those just cowboy romances. It just hits the spot when you're in the mood for it. I think it was Brother's Best Friend. I don't really know, but they lived on a ranch. It gave Chestnut Springs series just at another font, but her writing was just so good and so fun. Again, another fast pace, but it had like deep moments in it, and I was in like my cowboy romance era. Like, it's just what I needed in a book, and it gave exactly what I wanted, and I can't wait for the second one. And the covers are stunning. Then we have one of my top fantasy reads of the year, or another top fantasy reads of the year, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This one I remember randomly downloading on my Kindle and did not know how much I was gonna love it until I finished, and now I have 3 different editions of it and I'm just obsessed with it, and I think it was just so beautifully written and beautifully done. And one thing about me is I love good quotes and writing and like lyricalness sometimes, and the way that she wrote like the typewriter letters to each other just really hit me, and it was so good. I loved the concept of this book, and also it wasn't too heavy on the fantasy, which I loved a lot. It was just really beautiful, and it also broke my heart. So if there's pain in book, for some reason I eat it up. I don't know why. Then we have another series that I loved this year, but I did pick one from it that was my favorite, but the whole series was just a highlight of my year. It was so good, and that is the Natural series. The second one was my personal favorite. It was between the second and the last one, but I chose the second one because it followed a character that I really loved and wanted to know more about, and you got a lot of them in this one. But the whole series was just so good. It was one that I didn't expect to love as much as I did. It's just so fast-paced. It's a YA Criminal Minds like murder mystery type thing going on, and it was just so entertaining to follow along, and all of them just interconnecting with each other up until the end was just like perfect. The plot twists, the mysteries going on, the characters, the found family, each different teenager that was part of the house, and all the side characters, like I absolutely loved it. Then we have a book that I actually read very early this year, and that is Kingdom of the Feared by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the last book in the Kingdom of the Wicked little trilogy. The first 2 weren't my favorite, like I didn't absolutely love them, but I wanted to finish up the trilogy, and I did enjoy the male main character, and he ate in this one. Like this really showed me what I love in the romance subplots of fantasy, where he would tear down like different worlds. I have no words for it, but if you didn't love this trilogy, you didn't read this last one, I highly recommend. Like this was like blew the other 2 out of the water. Like it ate so hard, and this was like the blueprint of the fantasy romances for me at the start of the year. Like this, I think, threw me down the rabbit hole of getting into more fantasies, was this book. Then we have a little magical romance, and that is the 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I actually just recently went through it again and kind of like annotated it even more. That's how much I loved this book. It just really took me by surprise. I didn't think I was gonna like it because I don't love magical romances. I just didn't think I was gonna attach myself to it at all, but it was so good. I think that's the storyline of it wasn't so heavy on the magic, and that's what I thought it was gonna be. It kind of focused more on the main character and her grief and her life and what was going on with her, but like mix in the magical element with the romance, and all of it mixed together. It hit, and it worked so beautifully, and her writing was so beautiful. The quotes in here are just like stunning, and I loved it so much. I loved the journey the main character went on. I also loved the male main character in here. I feel like he was pretty prevalent in her life and her trying to figure out her life. Like he helped her, but he was also like, I just loved him. Like it was so good, and I love this storyline and her writing. One of my favorites of the year, obviously, because it is in this video. Then we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I'm like deciding between if I liked this or Two Twisted Crowns better, because it's a duology and that's the second one. I think Two Twisted Crowns a little bit more because it had a different point of view of another character, and that point of view just really did it for me, and I loved the way that it ended. But in general, the duology is one of my favorite of the year. I think it's very different than other fantasies I read, like the gothic eeriness of it and like the setting of like the mist and the gray setting. I don't know, but also the storyline was really interesting. The magic system was really interesting. It really hooked me. I really enjoyed it. There's also like the romance in here was really good. Then we have Love Redesign by Lauren Asher, her most recent release. I went into this with not many expectations. I kind of just wanted to read a romance. I was pleasantly surprised with this book. I think it had everything I enjoyed in like a contemporary romance. Her writing in this one reminded me a lot of Elsie Silver's, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because you had the 2 main characters and their banter and connection, but you also had the side characters that made up like a found family, and also just like the setting and the plot line and all of it together. Like I just like was absolutely obsessed with it. I love the tropes in here. It was like a family, friends, second chance, not enemies to lovers, but they had like a little argument type of thing going on, like they haven't spoken in a while. I love this one so much. Her writing was so good in this, and the main character Julian, I loved him. Like I loved him so much. Then we have another series, but my favorite from that one was the last book in the Prison Healer trilogy, which is The Blood Trader. One of my favorites of the year. I keep saying that about all of these because all of these are my favorites of the year, but like one of like the top. The way this trilogy finished off was like perfect. The found family you get from the first book up until this series is just like phenomenal. I love the storyline it took in this one because you get so connected to the characters and you see all of them kind of together, and so good. Also the romance that you're like pining for in the first 2 books. Oh, the tension, the forced proximity, all of it in here, and what the journey they had to go on was so good. Ate this up. I got so connected to the characters that when I got to this book and like the storyline that was happening, I was just like, I felt it all. I felt it all. I loved the way it ended, and it's just It was so, so good. Then I felt like I had to throw in a little mystery thriller. I didn't read a lot of them this year, but I did read a few that were good, so I felt like I had to include one. And one of my favorites was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I remember starting this and I couldn't put it down. Like, I had to finish it because I needed to know what was happening, and I love that about mystery thrillers. Like, I love when there's little plot twists, when there's little things being shown or told to you and you're trying to put the pieces together. I love that so much, rather than like a mystery thriller that kind of just like flows until you figure out what happens. I like when there's like little things that like have you on the edge of your seat and like questioning everything, and that's what this one gave. And the ending of this was so good too. It had me like whiplashing, like I didn't know what was going on. I was over here being a detective. That's how I feel like with all mystery thrillers. I just try to figure out from the very beginning. I try to like read into every single word that these authors write in here, and I didn't get it, and it just, I remember really enjoying it and I literally couldn't put it down. Then we have a book by Ali Hazelwood, and that is Love Theoretically. I love her STEM romances. They are some of my favorite, I feel like, adult romances that are fast-paced, kind of like palate cleanser type of romances, like no brain power but really good. This is one of those books where I remember reading it and absolutely eating it up, but then a few weeks later like not remembering what happened. I don't remember much about this book, but I do remember enjoying it while reading it and loving the two main characters. And was it enemies? Like, I literally can't remember anything, but I remember Jack being like amazing and I really loved him. And it's one of my favorites by Ali Hazelwood. I remember being really interested in the storyline. It was very fun and I loved this book. I did. I really enjoyed it. That's all I have to say. And then we have another trilogy, but I haven't finished it yet. I read the first two, and my favorite so far is Renegades. I do want to finish out this trilogy this year. I have a few weeks left to do it, but this is by Marissa Meyer, and this one I think is in my top 23 because I haven't read a fantasy or sci-fi dystopian type of book kind of like this. It's basically just YA with superheroes, and I really enjoyed getting to know so many of the characters in here because they all have different superhero abilities, and just like the different rivalries going on, and the setting I really enjoyed, and the undercover that the main character does. It was really entertaining, and it felt like I was watching a movie in my head, and that's what I loved about this. It was just so good, and that's why it's in my top 23 of 2023. I think I am saving the best for last, other than Magnolia Parks. I should have done top 3, like saved the best 3 for last, so that would have been Magnolia Parks and then these two. We know what I'm about to say, right? Like, you guys know what I'm about to pull up, what book I'm about to show. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This one was on my shelf, I kid you not, for so long, and I always looked at it and almost started it, but then I just never did, and I don't know why I waited so long to read it. When I started this book, I didn't really have the highest of expectations. I was on a journey to find a 5-star for a video, and I was like itching for one, and I remember starting this, and as soon as the main characters met, I was done for. Like, I knew I was going to absolutely eat up this book, love this book. And I think what I loved was it didn't take a lot of brain power, because a lot of fantasy is going into it. You have to kind of like really focus and understand everything. It kind of just flowed really well, and the storyline wasn't anything too crazy or complex, but it was just so good and entertaining. And I've never read tension or banter or so many of my favorite fantasy like romance tropes in one book before. Favorite of the year. One of my favorites of the year. Maybe favorite, not my favorite fantasy, because the next one is a fantasy, but one of my favorite fantasies of the year. Is so good. I cannot wait for the second book. I have a series, and I tried to choose my favorites. It's impossible. I do have one of them in my hand right now because I didn't want to hold all of them, but I have a top 3 from the series. So that is Throne of Glass. Me before Throne of Glass and me after Throne of Glass, 2 different people. It changed my life. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, the different emotions you go through with the storylines and the characters, and just like from beginning to end, so much happens and so much goes on, and you go through the whole journey with these characters that you're changed with them by the end of it. So my favorites are Crown of Midnight, which I read Assassin's Blade first, so to me that's the 3rd one, and then I have Queen of Shadows, which I think is the 5th one. I don't really know. And then the last one, Kingdom of Ash. Everything coming together from the beginning until the end, and the way it was wrapped up, I seriously felt like I was losing my friends. But the series is so good. It really genuinely did change my life in the most, I'm trying not to be dramatic, but it did. If you've read the series, I feel like you can understand where I'm coming from. And if you haven't, make it your 2024 goal to read this series. There's nothing like it. Truly just mind blown of this series. It has been, since finishing it, all I've been thinking about, all I've been searching on my TikTok, and all I've been trying to look up and say in the world as much as I can, because I just loved it so much, and I have connected to the characters so heavily. I can never let go. I can't. It's now part of who I am. I think I have all of them. Oh no, I have one more left, which I didn't say because I don't have the book, and I was supposed to say this while I was talking about my mystery thriller favorites of the year, but we're just gonna have to talk about it now. But that is Never Lie by Frida McFadden. This one I read earlier in the year. I was on a Frida McFadden binge, and this one I remember starting and just couldn't put down, and that's how I feel about a lot of her books. And I think she's just one of my favorite mystery thriller authors of this year that I found, and I just really enjoyed her writing. And this one gave me a lot of rock paper scissors vibes, and that's my favorite like mystery thriller that I've read by Alice Feeney and it was pretty short but also really fast paced, and it's one of those that you're like on the edge of your seat after each chapter, like things are happening, mini plot twists, and it's like my favorite type of mystery thriller, like I said, so I couldn't put it down. I needed to know what happened. I'm trying to figure out. I thought I had the answer the whole time and she completely took me off guard, as she always does, but it was one of my favorite mystery slash thrillers of the year. So those are the 23 books that I loved in 2023, and now we're gonna just speed round some books that I didn't love this year. I think I have around 10, which is a lot more than I expected, but some of them it's not that I like didn't love, but it's just like ones that I either were disappointed in, maybe I did not love them, or just not my favorites of the year. So speed round, we're not gonna go too much into them. I'll give like maybe a little bit of why I didn't like it, but the first one is This Woman Kingdom by Tahara Mafi, the same author as Shatter Me. I think this one was just a little bit too confusing for me. I honestly didn't really understand what was happening majority of the book. It felt like learning a new language almost, the creation of the politics and the world, and I just didn't really enjoy the story that much. And then we have From Blood and Ash by I think Jennifer L. Armentrout. This one just fell flat for me. I was in the start of my fantasy era, and this one I think is pretty popular. It's a series, but I only read this one and I just really couldn't connect to it. It felt super long. Yeah, couldn't connect to the storyline or the characters. Then we have Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I did read the first one and start the second one, but I just knew it wasn't for me. I don't know exactly what it was. I think just off the bat I didn't love the storyline. The characters together, like the main characters, I really just didn't really like. And then you have the storyline of what Shannon goes through at home, just really, I just didn't enjoy it. I'm sorry. And then we have Anastasia by Sophie Lark. This one was rough. I have like no words for it. Just, that's all. Then we have Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This one fell flat for me. I just didn't really feel the chemistry between the two characters. It was second chance and I didn't really enjoy when they first met. I don't know, didn't love. We have Once More with Feeling. I forgot the author's name. I think it's Charlie. This one I just didn't really like the storyline of it. The writing wasn't bad, like it was very fast paced. It flowed really well. I just don't think I loved the storyline of this one. Then we have Charlie, Love and Cliches. I honestly blocked this book out of my memory. I got the ick so hard in this book. The cover is so cute, so I kept the book, but I got the ick so hard in this book. It was unreal. And then we have Belladonna, which was surprising because I thought I was gonna love this book this year and I really just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like not like it. I gave it like 3 stars, but I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought. It was more of like a disappointing read, but I didn't really connect with like any of it, the writing or the storyline really. And then A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, which actually really surprised me because of how much I love Divine Rivals, but I just don't think I liked the type of fantasy it was. It was kind of like a folk story fantasy, and I think that was my first folk type of fantasy, and it kind of showed me that I didn't really enjoy that type of genre of fantasy, so I didn't really like that storyline. And then we have Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score, which honestly is such a shock to me, but it's not that I didn't like it. I loved her writing style, but I think it was just a disappointment again because the two main characters are so built up from the first two, and I just really didn't love the way that their story went. I think I just had different expectations for it, and it was like kind of my fault, but it was more of like a disappointing read. And then the last one is A Study in Drowning. This one I didn't love because again it was like a folk type of fantasy and I didn't really know that going in, so after starting it and realizing what type of fantasy it was, I was like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna like this. I did enjoy the ending, but it wasn't a fantasy for me. So those are the 23 books I loved and a few that I didn't love. I feel like I had a pretty good reading year. I found some of my favorite books that I know I will be going back to forever and thinking about the characters forever, and I am obsessed with some of these books that I've read this year, and I love finding books that I just absolutely love, like a 5, 6, 7 star, 10 star, 1,000-star books, and I found a few this year, and that just makes me really happy because there's nothing like books that you are obsessed with. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did. Let me know your favorites, some of your least favorites of the year, and I hope you guys are enjoying Bookmas, and that's all for me for today. I will see you hopefully tomorrow for the next day of Bookmas. Bye!